Hello everyone, and thank you for coming back after the lunch break. We might begin again. This afternoon we have two panel sessions, one focusing on consumers repairers and the right to repair, and this afternoon we'll be looking more at product stewardship, which will be a great panel as well. So just to kick off, I'd like to introduce our panellists. We have Tim Hicks, and I think you might have heard from Kyle this morning that Tim Hicks had a little bit of an issue with Toshiba, and that's why Tim is here today to have a little chat about his experience. We also have online Leslie Yates from the Australian Automotive Afterparts Association, AAA. And we also have Guido, who's joining today, and we have Erin from Choice. Just getting a little bit of feedback, sorry everyone, is that okay? So Karen, I think Karen and Guido are just waiting to join our other panellists for this particular session, but just to kick off, I thought we might start off with Tim and get Tim to share a little bit of his experience with your repair story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello everyone, this is extremely surreal. So my name's Tim Hicks. My story for coming here today is basically back in 2009, 2010, I was working for a small computer repair shop down the coast. It was my first real job. One of the things that we kept seeing more and more was people needing repairs to their laptops that they bought. Lots of things go wrong with laptops. Leave them on the car, they disappear. The screen breaks. You break the the power point in them as well, making them very hard to recharge. A challenge that we came up with again and again was that there was no real source of information on repairing these laptops. Obviously, a desktop computer is very easy to repair. It's a set of standard parts. It's relatively standard to work in them. But laptops, there was nothing. So I started on a bit of a search. I found as many laptop service manuals as I could on the internet, just from other people's sites who'd posted like 2 or 3 from whatever they'd been able to find. And my website quickly became what I believe to be... Oh, got a bit of feedback.
I'm not sure if that was me. Sorry.
Right. So my site became what I believe to be the biggest... I swear that's not for dramatic effect. Became the biggest repository of laptop service manuals anywhere on the internet. And that was working really, really well for a few years until 2012. I'd moved on to a different job by then, but I had maintained the website. And Toshiba sent me a fairly nasty takedown request. They claimed that I had breached their copyright in reproducing their service manuals. And long story short, I ended up taking them down. I didn't want to get into a massive legal fight with a multi-million-dollar international company. That's not my sort of thing. So yeah, unfortunately I had to take them down. As my site is at the moment, I still have manuals available from other brands. No other brand has actually come to me and told me to take them down, which is interesting because they must all be aware of it by now. It's been, they must... I feel like my site is sort of operating in like a sort of grey area of tacit approval. But as I said, no one else I haven't had a takedown request from anywhere else. It kind of actually fizzled out in the end because I had a little bit of media interest after everything happened. Kyle wrote a lovely article about me in Wired, which has been a fantastic fact to use in trivia. I do actually have a little bit of an update on this. A couple of years ago, Toshiba actually sold their stake in their own laptop business to, I believe it was Sharp Electronics. So Toshiba actually no longer make and sell their own laptops. The Satellite brand of laptops is now entirely a different brand. It's no longer Toshiba. And I can't help but feel a little bit of responsibility for that. So yeah, that is basically my story. That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Tim. Now we can see all panel members along with Tim. Erin, hi, from Choice. I might turn to you now just to share some of Choice's insight as to repairability in consumer goods, perhaps.
I'd be really happy to. And thank you for bringing us together today, Leanne.
You're welcome.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. Oh, are you getting a bit of feedback there?
No, you're perfect.
Oh, no worries then. Look, I want to say to start out with that right to repair is a really big debate. There are a lot of different problems that consumers face, but actually at the core of it is large multinational companies throwing their weight around. And it ties really neatly to the experience that Tim's had. These are companies that are looking to dominate markets. So I want to make 3 really brief comments to start today. The first is that consumer demand is there. Consumers want products that last. And as an independent, not-for-profit consumer group, we regularly poll consumers. We try to get an understanding of what they want. And what we see consistently is that people want things that are durable and repairable. We did a survey earlier this year, and 85% of people told us they're buying things that last a long time is really important. 73% said repairability is important. So demand's there, but the market isn't fully responding. And I think that helps us think about our policy solutions. How do we get markets, and particularly big manufacturers, to meet what consumers want? I really appreciated the point that Minister Rattenbury made earlier in the day, that we need to start thinking about more than end-of-the-line solutions. And that was the second thing I'd love to say. I'm hopeful that we can lift the quality of products. One way we need to think about doing that is by starting with the information at point of sale. At Choice, we've got a lot of experience with this. When you think about what we need is a ranking system for the quality of products. So something that can easily tell us how long something will last and how easy will it be to fix if it breaks. Now, we've been doing this essentially for 60 years, but we don't want this information to stay on the Choice website. It would be ideal if people had this at the point of sale when you're going to buy something. We want to work towards something along the lines of a mandatory labelling scheme, something where you can quickly glance at a product and just see, is it any good? Is it better than the one next to it? And we know when these schemes exist that companies and manufacturers compete on these factors. You can see it in the Australian market right now with the water and energy labelling scheme. The best example that we love to point to is dishwashers. A long time ago, dishwashers weren't very water efficient. And I think a lot of households got into that habit of hand washing their dishes. I think some people still do that on the assumption that it uses less water. But now actually dishwashers in Australia are so water efficient, you're better off using those machines. So if you can create a great simple system that starts to rank products on these factors, companies will compete, standards will lift. This should be one of the first interventions we make. There are other ways to lift durability, design, standards, bans on poor quality, like a ban on planned obsolescence. I want all of those solutions. But if we think where we can start, it's public, consistent, standardized ranking. And then thinking more about those end-of-the-line solutions. How do we help people when something breaks? I think a lot of this is stopping the blockers that businesses create when you want to get a refund, a replacement, or a repair. Large businesses use their power to make this process difficult. And I've really appreciated that the Productivity Commission draft report has acknowledged really clearly that we've got great rights under the Australian consumer law. But businesses aren't always upfront about them, or in the experience of a lot of Choice members, can actively ignore them or just tell you that they may not apply when they clearly do. Now, the Productivity Commission's put forward that idea of the ACCC providing guidance on product durability. It's great, but we're really hopeful for more. We'd love to see interventions that will mean that companies stop exploiting the lack of consumer knowledge around consumer guarantees, that they have to proactively provide this information about how long a product will last and what your rights are. And we're also really pleased to see that Productivity Commission put forward that idea of a super complaints power. This is also one of those interventions that will really help us challenge the power of big manufacturers. What it is the ability for groups that act in the consumer or the public interest to raise a complaint that has to be publicly responded to by a regulator. It's essentially people power with legal oomph. If we had this, I know I've got a short list of issues I'd love to put up for a super complaint, and I think every panel member here today would have their own list of issues as well. I think that tells me this is a power we need to make happen. It's something that we could really use very quickly to help act against companies that repeatedly fail to offer repairs and help their customers. That's what I wanted to say in opening. I'm really excited for the conversation.
Thanks so much, Erin. And the aim of today is really just to have a snapshot from each of these presenters today, and then open it up for a more engaging discussion around some of the issues that are raised. Guido, you're a repair advocate and the new General Manager of Revolve Recycle. Would you like to talk to us about your repair experiences? I think you're on mute. Leslie, I'll just invite you to jump in and Guido can work out his tech, if that's okay. This is Leslie Yates, as I mentioned before, from the AAA, and she's very heavily involved and managed the data sharing journey with the AAA. Welcome, Leslie.
Thanks, Leanne, and hello to everyone there and my fellow panellists. I thought I'd talk a little today about the activities that we're undertaking in supporting consumer awareness, because I know how frustrated we all are about how the confusion between the manufacturer's warranty and a consumer's statutory rights. And we had several conversations with government and with the ACCC in particular about the confusion that reigns and how consumers who aren't aware of their rights are unlikely to be able to achieve what are their statutory rights. And we know from the ACCC inquiries that manufacturers are relying upon the manufacturer's warranty as their first conversation for repair, refund or replace, rather than a consumer statutory guarantee. So I think the day we decided to provide information and literature to our members to support consumer choice was a real kind of growing up for us. We decided that a consumer that is aware of their rights were more likely to be one of our customers. And it's kind of our job, in a way, to provide materials on our countertops about the truth about manufacturers' warranties and your statutory guarantees. And I'm really quite proud of the fact that many of our members, so if you go to an independent repairer, you'll find on the countertop information about your consumer rights. So we started to use the membership as a way of pushing out the message about the difference between a manufacturer's warranty and how your statutory consumer rights will endure, despite the fact that the manufacturer's warranty may be completed in 3 or 5 or 7 years in the case of a brand new car. So it was a real growing up for us, rather than demanding that the regulators and government put out more and more information to support consumer choice, was us saying, well, you know what, we've got a custom interface too, and maybe we're part of that solution. So far that's having a great deal of success. We printed these materials for our independent repairers and they're on high rotation. So we're up to the 3rd or 4th reprint. And we've given them a kit so that they're able to provide good information to customers immediately. We're also providing a really interesting legal service to consumers now. So our members' customers, if they have a warranty rejected because they used an independent repairer, we're able to provide a legal hotline. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now. It started with a very slow burn, but it's now a very well-used service. And I think that really does show consumers that we're very confident about the quality of our repair. We've got good quality, we've got highly qualified technicians. We only use quality parts and fit for purpose parts because we also offer a statutory guarantee on our work. But consumers, I think, are becoming more aware of the hotline. We're referring more members to it. And I must say the strike rate is very good. When a consumer is armed with the right language, they know how to have that conversation at the dealership about their warranty rights. We're just getting, frankly, close to 100% success rate in getting a remedy for what is a defect. So I think just wanted to highlight the fact that as industry, we can also be providing good information to consumers about what their rights are.
Thanks, Leslie. And I must say, I've looked at your brochures and they're fantastic. They're really plain English and it really empowers consumers as to what their rights are. And I think that's certainly what the Productivity Commission are thinking along those lines. Guido, welcome. Are you with us? No. We might go to Karen. Sorry, Guido. We'll try and sort something out for you in the meantime. The next presenter we have is Karen Ellis, and Karen and Dan are repairers who travel around Victoria. They're known as Mended Australia, but they're very passionate repairers, and they visit repair cafes. And I think you've got some really interesting stories to share about some of your repair interactions amongst the community more generally. Karen?
Okay. When I received a no of sorts for activity back in 2012, it got me thinking, and I had the same question that Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, had in his YouTube video posted yesterday. Why stop the self-repair community? Yes, why indeed stop us from fixing our stuff? I knew that if repair was to have a future in local communities, my husband Danny and I had to help make that happen, along with other repair enthusiasts. We both knew that there was no time to waste. We had to get out in the community repairing. Since 2015, under the banner of Mended Australia, Danny and I have volunteered at over 190 community events around Victoria, including online sessions related to reuse, circular economy. Mended advocates for the right to repair legislation globally and campaigns for Australian right to repair legislation. Mostly attends registered repair cafes. We must make it clear that it enjoys volunteering in communities as a free entity and welcomes and promotes diversity in community repair models. It suggests by only mentioning repair cafes, this could have the unintentional effect of excluding those repair groups that choose to develop their own identities using a different title. Mended believes to repairing can happen, and that Australia's first National Repair Summit is a good place to start discussions of how best to support repair at the grassroots level. It's at this community level that some heavy lifting is being undertaken by passionate repairers and repair advocates, helping consumers keep their useful, mostly inexpensive household items and textiles from prematurely being downcycled or sent to landfill. Community repair events are amazing. Mended has repairing and mending skills that it can share. It's extremely motivating for our creative minds to use our skills to troubleshoot broken items. It's the best often fixed to repair these items, and we experience the repair joy. However, free community repair activities can be fraught with challenges and barriers. Here are some of these. 1. Ad hoc funding from benevolent bureaucrats. Question: why should repair people be working for free to deliver free services and funds? Excessive insurance coverage. Some brokers are reported to be refusing repair groups and free liability and risk flagged as issues. 4. Venue hire costs. Like men's sheds, governments have not committed to dedicated repair sheds or similar in their waste and resource recovery plans for a circular economy. 5. Lack of volunteers. However, Mended does not agree there is a lack of expertise out there. Myths 6 about safety abound. Some of these submission to the Productivity Commission. 7. No support alliance for Australian repair, community repairers and groups. Hopefully an outcome of the summit will be to address this issue. 8. Bureaucratic requirements for the repair activity. 9. 9. Limited access to manuals, diagrams and schematics. This issue could be addressed by right to repair legislation to ensure community repairers are not accessing these. 10. Items that are glued shut or hard to get into due to proprietary and hidden screws. Again, right to repair legislation related to design of products to address this issue would be helpful. 11, the cost of portable appliance testing equipment, its calibration and the training of volunteers are expensive to fund. Our submission to the Commission had some details on the lucrative business of PAT machines, testing and ongoing associated costs. To finish, a quote from Cherie White, author of Victim to Victor. When others tell you you can't, then they actually fear that you can and are even more afraid that you will. Go away, you right to repair. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Guido, are you able to chat to us now?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you. Excellent. You might need... Oh, great. Thank you.
A few trials and errors, but we are here. So good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my experiences with repair go back from my time with the Bauer, where we had repair cafes introduced in Australia and had our own repair services for electronics, woodwork, and bikes. And many of the issues have already been mentioned that we were confronted with: the planned obsolescence, the difficulty to open items. For woodwork, it's labor-intense. Every repair is, in fact, a labor-intense task and therefore expensive. And that's why we have been arguing for tax deductibility and deducting your expenses for repair from your income, basically, from your taxable income. And that's the kind of input we have given to the Productivity Commission. But I would like to focus here on some positive examples that we have overseas, but also here in Australia. And one of the more better known examples is the Fairphone. It's the issue here is extended producer responsibility that I would like to address, because I think producers play an important role, can play a role, if they are with good intention joining it with the sustainability in mind. And Fairphone is a perfect example of this. This is a phone developed in Europe, in the Netherlands actually, with parts that can be replaced and by the repairer, by the consumer themselves. They can replace every part, from the microphone, from the camera, from the battery. It's opening with screws like you no longer see with other phones. So that's a perfect example of a good product that we should have more access to. It's still not available in Australia, but in many places all over the world it is already around, and we hope that it will come this part of the world as well at some point. It's rated by iFix with Kyle, who spoke earlier, as the best score, 10 out of 10. It's also made by Fairtrade as a gold product, which means that all the components are collected and resourced in a fair way, and it is considered as one of the top sustainability products. So there are good examples. That's one of them. Another example that I would like to suggest is Bosch, the electronic white goods producer. They have introduced the Blue Movement. Again, it's in Europe, only available, not yet here. But it comes down to what was mentioned earlier, the service economy, where you actually don't buy your product anymore, but you rent it. And you have it serviced by them. They come to your place to set it up. They repair it for you. They move it for you if you move to another place. And you hold on for it for as long as you want. And all service is handled by them. And if you want a new one later, they will take it back, and they can makes the manufacturer more responsible for designing products that last longer, because that's obviously in their interest to then have a product that is of better condition and can be reused for a longer period. And those two examples are in the electronics, but something similar actually exists in the clothing industry. There is again a European product designed for jeans. MUD is the name, MUD jeans, and they produce jeans that you again can lease, and for a $10 a month you have your jeans, and it's made with organic cotton, locally produced and distributed, and you keep it for as long as you want it, and at the end of the time that you don't need it anymore, they take it back, they can recycle it and use it again for cheese. So there are those examples. But there is actually also 2 examples here in Australia that I think would be worthwhile to mention. One that I was introduced to in my time with the Bauer, it is Wilson's Elements, and Edwin Wilson might be amongst the audience now because he also registered. And he had developed X years ago universal replacement parts, because he had analyzed and concluded that rightly many products after a while don't provide spare parts anymore and makes it impossible to repair your item. So he developed universal parts for heating elements, for nuts, for fridges and stoves, etc. And he has those items now available here in Australia and has sent them also overseas. There's an international market growing. Example of how you can help repairs when you have no access to parts. And another example here in Australia that I'm introduced now to in my new job with Revolve Recycling, where we focus on bikes, that is the Pedal Club. And what they do is they swap bikes for kids. Because if you have younger kids, you every 6 to 12 months, they need a new bike. So it's not very helpful to every time have to buy a new one. And you just rent the bike for the age of your kids for the time that you need that bike. $20 a month on average is what it costs you. And when they get older, you bring it back and you rent the one for the next size up. So that's another example of what is possible, where the consumer is helped with better services and better quality products, and where both the manufacturer and the consumer can meet their needs. And I would like to leave it at that.
Thank you. Thanks, Guido. We lost you there for a little bit visually, but I'm glad to see everybody back. Thank you. Look, thank you very much just for sharing your experiences and where you come into this repair discussion. Something I'm really interested in, and something I think that the Productivity Commission has actually picked up on, is how do we collect data around repairability? All of you, particularly Choice in the automotive industry and the repair cafe industry, we need evidence and we need data around what are the types of products that are repeatedly failing, where are the issues around product obsolescence. How do we go about, as an Australian nation, getting great data on this? Because it's really challenging across, we hear stories, it's very anecdotal, but we know that there is a need to present evidence rather than anecdotal stories. So what are your suggestions individually? I think, Erin, I might start with you, because Choice have got a really good track record on comparability of product qualities, etc.
So actually, I've got some good news, is that we've got some data.
Fantastic.
It's a great start. So I know that some people will have seen the Choice submission to the Productivity Commission initial inquiry. We run what we call our repairability or a reliability survey every year. We've been doing it for over 10 years. And we speak to anywhere between 4,000 and 11,000 Choice members. So not the average member of the public, usually people who are more informed. They read Choice, they engage with the issues. We ask them what products they have and what issues they've experienced with those products in the last 12 months. So we've pulled that data forward, it's in our submission, and we've got some really interesting trends. We know not just what products are failing more regularly, stick vacs, printers, laptops, mobiles, but also the points of failure. And that's a starting point. If we want to start to rank and rate products, we know what's more likely to happen. Even depending on the nature of the product, we've got trends with brands as well. So we've got something to start with, but we'd love some data, particularly around what manufacturers are doing. So if they're able to answer questions publicly around things like what spare parts do you have easily available, how much will it cost for someone to repair something, and how long will you hold this for, that helps us get a sense of repairability.
I think that's excellent. That's some great ideas. Leslie, did you have any observations?
I think we do need to be.
I think you're muted.
That we have, Leanne.
Sorry, thanks.
I think we've got great technicians and great repairers, and we need to be talking with them about repairability. So we've got the issue about where the products fail, but some products are going to require regular maintenance and repair just because of use. And we've got a lot of expertise in our workshops, and we're looking now at how we start to mine that to ask about repairability. And that meaning, do you have to move a huge component in order to get to the component that regularly needs replacement? That adds labour cost. Do you need to buy a massive component instead of the small bolt or the small spring? I just think we haven't turned our attention to it. We've kept it very anecdotal, and we are now looking as an industry, as I think many are, about how do we do this now in a systematic way, find a way to regularly engage, maybe on an annual basis, with what are the vehicles that are easier to repair and why, because it saves the consumer in labour, time and convenience.
Thank you. And I think another point that's been raised in these discussions, and then I'll hand it over to Anna for questions, is this information at point of sale. We've all bought products probably in the belief that if you spend $250 on a toaster, as opposed to the $15 cheaper Kmart toaster, that product will last longer and that you will be able to get that product repaired. But this lack of information at the point of sale, I myself have bought external lights that I've installed. They're beautifully designed and they look great. I didn't realise that at the time that I can never change the bulb. So I will have to replace every light that's on the outside of my house. Had they told me at that stage, I probably would have bought different lights. So it is this very simple example of information at the point of sale about, can I fix this or not? Anna, can you perhaps give us some questions for the panel? Thank you.
Yes, I've got quite a few questions coming through.
Great.
There we go. So for Karen, do you think it is time for the many disparate repair cafes and like organisations in Australia to form an overarching body that could lobby, etc.?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's what we need. I'm getting some feedback here. I'm sorry, I'm listening to myself. Yes, and we hope that this is what's going to come out of the Repair Summit, that we can get, that is going to represent and support this growing network of repair advocates and repairers.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay. From Sasha, is anyone in Australia pulling together a case to lobby for government incentives for consumers to seek repair services and or buy repaired products?
I think, Guido, you can talk about taxation incentives that we've seen in other countries. Perhaps you could share those examples.
Yeah, it's true. There are some interesting examples overseas of legislation that has been introduced and that could be easily replicated here. One is the Swedish model, where you can indeed deduct your cost for a repair from your taxable income. That's an easy concept that could be repeated here. It's primarily there for white products that they do it. In France, they recently introduced the obligation that every product should mention the repairability of their item. And that is information that should be on the package. Leon, your problem with your lights would have been solved if that would have existed already here, then you would have known that it's not repairable. There is also information or legislation in preparation for minimum time that spare parts need to be available. In the UK, for example, it has been introduced where it is 10 years that spare parts have to be available. So those are simple examples of legislation that could be introduced and which we have put to the Productivity Commission, and I know they are considering that at this point in time. So we can only hope that they will introduce something similar here. And the Repair Summit and what we just are going through today is actually also a perfect platform that hopefully will continue to be the voice for the people who want access to better repair.
Thanks, Guido. And we should do a plug for the Productivity Commission because with the draft report, there are a series of questions where the Productivity Commission is requesting further information, and it's possible for everyone to make a submission. And your final date is the 23rd of July. I'm glad, Paul, that you seem to suggest it's a little bit flexible. But that's wonderful. And I think all of these ideas, even though you may have made them already to the Productivity Commission, if there's further information of best practice examples, I think there's a lot of manufacturers and industries that really have good practices in place, and I think it's really great to share those stories so that other industries can look to that as well. Thanks.
Thank you. So from Miles, he would love to get thoughts from the panel on accelerating uptake of repair cafes, especially support of startup costs and sitting in regional areas.
It's all about funding, isn't it, Karen, for repair cafes?
Yes, we certainly need governments to be handing out funding, and not just the 3 or 4 or 6 months. We need ongoing funding, and we need repair activities happening in dedicated spaces on an ongoing basis, very similar to perhaps the Bower in Marrickville, Sydney. They need to be, that type of model needs to be everywhere, and repair cafes need to be in neighbourhoods, in dedicated spaces, not always breadcrumbing, as I said, for funds.
That's right, and as you say, piggybacking off the fantastic tool library movement, I know that there's a number of tool libraries where repair cafes have sprung up out of tool libraries as well, and maker spaces. There's such a strong community demand for that.
Yes, and the wheel doesn't have to be reinvented. There's also many men's sheds, and those men's sheds don't have repair cafes in them. Well, not a lot of them do. So, you know, there's other avenues to explore. The models mightn't quite match up, but these are facilities that could be being used.
Yeah, thank you.
This one's for Erin. What's your experience of manufacturers giving you repairability and durability information? Do many of them reply? And does this need to be legislated?
So I might start at the end there. Yes, it needs to be legislated. That would be great. So we don't currently ask for information about how long people keep parts for. It's something we're really exploring at the moment. So Choice is looking at all sorts of ways we can give people information about other options. We've just launched, for example, a new mobile phone comparison tool that lets people put refurbished and new options side by side, so they can actually see they can get great options, usually at a cheaper price, without any issues around warranties and other things. So kind of removing those stresses people have around buying refurbished. Our general experience in asking companies for information is that that some of them will and be really proactive about it. It kind of reflects the market generally. Some companies are good at this. Some companies provide spare parts, provide information about how to repair products. Some companies don't prioritize it, and some actively fight it. Unless you have some sort of requirement for all companies to provide this information, you won't see consistency. And you won't get what we think is really important, which is the comparison between products. You need standardized, comparable information for this to work really well.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes in this panel, and then because of we have the next panel with some online people, we do need to build in a 5-minute break in between the two panels. So perhaps if there's just 1 or 2 more questions, are there any questions?
Ask for the audience.
I know we have some Repair Cafe people here, but is there anything else that people would like to talk about? If not, we have questions on Slido.
Okay, so this is from Annette from the Reconnect project. What are the panel's thoughts on quality standards for repair services? Mobile phone repairers have no formal training, and so there's no standard.
So is that a skill set? Sorry, you're asking?
I suppose the question is, what are the panel's thoughts on quality standards for repair services where some repairers don't have training?
Well, I think... Actually, you might like to talk about this, Tim. I mean, the market really dictates, doesn't it? If you get a bad service anywhere, you'll go somewhere else, won't you?
Absolutely. It's actually funny because I can talk a bit about my housemate's phone. which she recently tried to have repaired, and I forget exactly what was wrong with it. I think the speaker. I think there was an issue with the speaker initially, and because it was a particularly difficult repair to do, they ended up almost destroying the phone. Essentially, it was. The speaker in the end was actually completely unusable because they'd had to reassemble the thing using glue, which is actually how they were made originally in the factory. But because the repairer didn't know exactly, they didn't have access to exactly what kind it was. They didn't have the information to do it. So I think it's, yes, there's definitely some horror stories out there of some botched repairs happening out there. I think of a lot of that is just going to be they don't have the information. They're simply being asked to do a thing that they don't. They've not been given the tools. They've not been offered the tools to be able to do this properly by the manufacturers of these things. So it's.
And I think the point you make is sometimes these repairs are very simple things like replacing a battery or replacing a screen, which does not involve infringement of intellectual property rights
Exactly.
or
That's just
privacy or security reason.
It's just replacing one thing that comes from a factory with another that is an identical thing, and it shouldn't be that difficult.
That's right. So is it perhaps one last question, Anna?
Okay. Here's, this one's for Erin. It says, are we not confusing the issue? A manufacturer supplies you with a durability level and a third party modifies it and it has a different durability level. So your thoughts on that, Erin?
Look, I'd just say that we've been approaching this issue as multifaceted. From a kind of consumer perspective broadly, people want a lot of different things. This isn't one problem. I want the product I buy to be really good and I want it to last. And if it breaks, I want options. I want to be able to take it to an independent repairer. I want that to work and be affordable and there to be competition in the market. And if I go to the manufacturer, I want them to respect me and give me options as well to make it as easy as possible. So we approach this from kind of an end-to-end piece. There are definitely really discrete issues in the repair market, but I think the picture is much bigger. If we don't think about the quality of products before they get on the market, it's almost like the repair market itself is catching all of these problems that are coming at them. I'd love it if fewer things needed to be repaired, full stop.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you once again, Leslie, Erin, Guido, Karen, Tim, and thank you everyone for your questions as well. We'll bring this session to a close, and as I have said, if you can all stay with us for 5 minutes, we'll bring our next panel on, and John Gutsakis and Janet and Ian will come up, and we will have a 5-minute break to allow the online people to join. And so just relax, and we'll be back with you in a minute. Thank you.